Wow. Man, they almost did get me, but I was prepared for it. Hi again. Welcome again, Keith Explains. It's 2012. It's, I think, April. I'm going to claim it's April because I've been doing my taxes lately, but I don't recall finishing my taxes. So I think that's April. First topic. We got a bunch of topics tonight, including a very special observation that many of you fans out there I think, will be very happy to hear. First topic. People have been complaining to me about the cold opening of the show. They're like, Keith, you never seem surprised when John points to you, and it always seems kind of stupid. And then you spend the first couple minutes talking about how you aren't surprised and how John pointed to you. And I agree. Having watched the shows, that's exactly what I do. And it's terrible. So please, email me better things that I could do to open the show. Like Craig Ferguson on TV, he brings someone from the audience up. And then they stand there, and then he marches around them and mocks them in his humorous way. But I can't do that because I don't have other people on my show. At all, if I can help it. And the people in my audience are too smart to come stand on camera and be mocked. And we'd have to mic them. And that's hard. And we don't do that. We need like a staff of professionals to do that. And we do not have a staff of professionals, as you at home are well aware. Someone said to me, Keith, I noticed you've been eating a lot of gum lately. What's up with that? And I've talked before about how I'm trying to stop biting my fingernails. And they were like, you could do all these things to stop biting your fingernails. And then all of them didn't work. And then they were like, well, have you tried gum? And I'm like, I don't think gum's going to work. And gum's not working. But I went to Costco and bought a lot of gum. So now I have to eat the gum because I have it in my house. A lot of gum. I have an awful lot of gum. I mean, I could get a gum problem out of all the gum that I have, and then I would have the chewing in your fingernails and eating too much gum problem, which I wish it worked, because then the money spent on gum would be worth it. Whereas now the money spent on gum is just propping up a gum manufacturing conglomerate of some sort who looked at their numbers last quarter and went, woo, California! Someone must really love gum out there. We also were buying it from Costco, and I get some, and Loretta gets some. Loretta hates watermelon, and apparently 95% of all gum in the world is watermelon flavored. So she'll buy the large Costco-sized gum and then give most of it to me to eat. Look, see? I brought gum with me. See? Gum. I have one opened here. I had a piece of gum in my mouth earlier, and Loretta's like, you can't chew gum on TV. And I'm like, I think you can. I've seen people doing it. And she's like, they're on Teen Disney. And yeah, it probably is on Teen Disney. Keith Olbermann never chewed gum on the air that I know of, although he got fired. So maybe the gum, no, I don't think that was a thing. Other things I have been trying lately to stop biting my fingernails. I have tried reminding myself how dirty, filthy of a habit it is. And now, in addition to biting my fingernails, I have self-esteem problems. So, also not working the way I had wanted. And in addition to that, now my brain has started doing other things to screw with me. Like a while ago, my brain went, hey, we can make the tongue in Keith's mouth click around on the roof of his mouth and make this noise inside of his head to the tune of some far-off music that Keith can't quite place. And it'll interrupt him when he's trying to think. So I'll be sitting at the computer trying to diagnose some problem, and then I'll realize the theme to the Beach Boys is playing. And I'll be like, where? Oh, that's coming from me. For God's sakes, I should see a professional, I think, is a capsule summary. It hadn't quite occurred to me until now, but I'm going to write that down. See a brain professional. If I seem well-adjusted next month, you'll know it worked. Also, oh, I forgot about this. We were driving here tonight, and I noticed again that my neighborhood every evening is beset by crows. Just hundreds of them, just walking around, looking vaguely creepy and evil. And I have seen enough teen comedy / dramas to know that this is a portent of bad things. Perhaps zombies will be crawling out of the ground tonight. Perhaps the vampires are about to attack. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why my neighborhood was picked for the crow class reunion every night. But really, there's hundreds of them. I have come out of my house and seen the roof line of the building across from my building just covered with crows, plotting things, and looking at me like, is tonight the night? Does anyone know? Is tonight the night? Tonight? Oh, no, maybe not. Anyone get any orders? Is tonight the night we kill him? So far, nothing. But it also reminds me, I'm like, my neighborhood would be great if you were a goth girl. Because when you left your house every evening, you'd be like, I'm home. Because it's surrounded by crows. I don't know, like, you call a group of crows a murder. So, like, my neighborhood is like a gangland murder of crows. I mean, I got way more crows than one murder. I mean, you could take out a large elementary school with the number of crows I got. And then that would get on CNN really well. Recently, and by recently I mean this last weekend, I was up in Healdsburg, which is a hard-to-spell name of a town in California. And I, of course, went there again for an offsite for one of the groups I'm on the board of. And they paid for it because I am incapable of paying for my own vacations in any reasonable way. I always think, why would I pay that much money to rent a hotel room? I've got a house at my house that I could just stay in. And the writer's like, but we'd be somewhere else. And I'm like, yes, that's another part of the problem. Not only am I paying really for 2 houses while I'm gone, because I can't rent out the one I have for a couple days. And I've thought of that Airbnb thing, but really, if I put photos of the inside of my house up, people would not rent it. They would be like, I am not renting that very, very cluttered place. To say nothing of the cats. Do not want other people in their house. And I don't know how to put that in the ad. Like, 2 insane cats live there who will alternately love you and hate you. Sometimes at the same time. So I, as I said, I don't vacation well, but this was paid for, so I went. And I'm going to say I had a first for me, which I am now 45 years old, and I don't think I'm going to make it to 90. So I've made it half my probable lifetime without this happening to me. And I think it's possible it's true out there for a lot of other people. I was at dinner Saturday night, a nice dinner. And someone came by and put a plate down in front of me, and it looked kind of like a really big flat soup bowl, and it had a little round white thing in the center. And I said, oh, what is this? And the person that set it down said, oh, that's parsley flan. And I had to ask. I said, excuse me, did you say parsley flan? Because my brain did not think those two. I thought I had missed something in the center. I thought like I'd had a baby stroke. You know, I thought it'd been like, oh, that's parsley flavored something. And later on, will we bring out your flan? But no. They took, I don't even know what's in flan. I think it's milk and sugar and eggs. I'm told from the audience that there are eggs in flan and parsley, apparently. And thyme. Later I found out there was also thyme in there. A little round thing of parsley and thyme flan, which no one has ever... Like, I think 6 people in the country have probably eaten this now. And they were all at the table with me. and for a moment I was like, well, how would I even eat parsley flan? I mean, do you do what you do with normal flan, like with a spoon and the licking? Because that just seems weird. But luckily, Moments later, another guy came by and poured soup on it. See, it was a thing of parsley flan in this, like, soup. Like a potato soup or something. Honestly, I was still too startled by the parsley flan to ask what the soup was. Although it was okay. And then, so I sat there at the table having a polite discussion with other people while cutting a thing of parsley flan into tiny pieces so I could eat it in the spoon with my soup. And as God is my witness, if I die now, I think I will have done something that maybe 1% of the world ever does. Parsley flan. I have thought of looking up how to make this just so I can expose more of the world to the intricacies of... We also went wine tasting. And I've been to Napa a lot. But I don't really get to wine taste very often because I usually end up driving. So I end up more like wine limousining. Like here, I'll drive and everyone will get drunk around me. In this case, we had a bus with a very nice driver lady who knew where she was going. So we all just went to different wineries and then we would get there and then they would go, "Oh, come this way for your private wine tasting." And I was like, "Woo, wine." And then, having never been wine tasting much, it occurred to me, they don't really give you much wine at a wine tasting. Like a tiny, like a little, like, here, how's this? And I'm like, that's nice. And they're like, well, here's the next one. And I'm like, what about the first one? I think I wine tasted all day without ever getting even the tiniest little bit of a buzz. And I am a cheap drunk. Because sometimes when I get home, I will make myself a delightful adult beverage. And then I will sit on the couch and drink my delightful adult beverage. And midway through, I will realize, man, am I a cheap drunk. Because I am vaguely buzzed and watching Colbert on TV. He's funny. That guy's funny. Now, I've seen him not buzzed, and he's funny then too, but he's funnier. You've had a delightful adult beverage, is my point. Also, we had lunch at, what's his name? The guy that directed The Godfather. Francis Ford Coppola. We had lunch at the Francis Ford Coppola winery. That guy's into everything. I mean, he makes movies, and he bought a winery. And the lunch was okay, although it was composed of weird food. Not... all right, weird like the flan, but again, the flan just was so weird, it didn't occur to me that I should be freaked out by it until I'd started eating. Whereas lunch was a bunch of weird food that I recognized and already knew I didn't like. So I had like bread at lunch, and it was great bread, and I had salad, and it was a great salad, and I had a little bit of the vegetables and the rice. Okay, so come dessert, I had not had a lot of food. And I was okay with that because I'm fat. And not eating a lot of food is what I should be doing most of the time. And that was totally foiled when they brought out this dessert, which was some other cream dessert, vanilla, ungodly good thing. Huge amounts of it. Like, here, have some. And I'm like, that's good. And then I had a lot more of it. And then they were like, here, we have more. And they brought another whole plate out. And I was like, this is going to kill me. And I'm going to enjoy it. The great thing is I can't remember the name of it, so I can't look up how to make it. The bad thing is I'm sure Loretta does remember the name of it, so she'll remind me. And then I'll have to make it. While we're up there, we also visited the Schultz Museum. It's by Charles Schultz. He drew the Peanuts for, I'm going to say, 900 years. And he has a museum up there in his old hometown, and it's next to the ice rink that he bought. Which I'm like, hey, it's cool that he bought an ice rink because he loved hockey. Or maybe he loved hockey and so he bought an ice rink. It could be either way. And he kept mentioning, I mean, I think Charles Schultz is possibly responsible for the entire hockey industry in this country. Because Lord knows Canadians didn't do it. But just that, Snoopy on a pair of skates may have, in fact, indoctrinated 2 whole generations of American children into hockey. And that explains why we have the Sharks in downtown San Jose. It's my story, at least. we went to his museum, and it's weird to go to a comic museum because they, of course, want to be all museum-y, so they put up stuff on the walls, but of course what he did was comic strips. So you end up shuffling sideways down the museum, right? Reading the... Now, they've blown them up a little, but it's still not a terribly comfortable way to read comic strips. Like, if they just handed me a book, the museum could have been a lot smaller. And I would have been more comfortable. Could have had a chair, perhaps an adult beverage. That does remind me, plans are underway for the Keith Explains Museum. It's due to open in 2018. We haven't yet selected a state because we're waiting to see what subsidies are willing to kick in. But I'm thinking something on the 6,000 to 8,000 square feet on each level. And a basement, of course, for the zombies. Well, for when the zombies attack. We're not going to keep zombies in the basement. And just lots of big TV screens filled with me. And perhaps a little retrospective of my life. My time as an astronaut. Perhaps a room filled with testimonials of all the orphans I rescued. Again, we're planning. It's going to be exactly as truthful as the Nixon Museum is. Anyway, here's something else. I've been listening to... I listen to a lot of podcasts because I can listen to a podcast like, when I'm biking, because you can't watch a TV when you're biking, but you can listen. You can listen to people talking when you're biking. So I listened to a bunch of them, and a while ago, I realized that you could, in the little podcast thing, say, I don't want to listen at regular speed. Like, I want to listen faster than regular speed. So, like, you can go, I want to listen at twice normal speed. And the little thing, it does something magical, right? It pitch shifts the voice back down so they don't sound like chipmunks, but they're talking twice as fast, which is amazing because I've been doing this for so long. In fact, there's some podcasts where I have listened to like 50 or 80 episodes and I've never listened at regular speed. So my entire belief in how this person or their interview topics, right, has always been at twice normal speed. Like I listened to Mark Marone's podcast, What the Fuck? It's hilarious. And he sounds really smart. And then once I forgot to put it on double speed, and I was like, wow, is he drunk or something? Because he's talking... See, he has been talking... I have assumed this whole time, just because, right, that he was freaky smart and really good, and all of his guests were just on top of things, and they could just come back really quickly with things, and they had these very, very fast conversations back and forth, and things would happen, okay? He's a guy like me, turns out, in that he has pauses and everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to the editing guy, okay? And we're going to run this show at like 1.5 normal time so that I sound smart. So like from here, like it's probably already happened. I can't tell because it'll happen later. But like imagine that there was I'll tell him to put a noise. It'll be like, whoop, okay, and you'll know that's when I started talking. Okay, I'm still talking at the same speed in the real world. But there, whoever my viewers are, all of a sudden I have become smart, is my hope. We'll see. I mean, you can write in and tell me. Talk about it in the forums. You could be like, that podcast double speed show was great, Keith. And here's the funny thing, right? Like, I could try to talk really fast on the show now, in which case when it's playing at like normal speed, later on playing at like twice speed normal later, you'd be like, wow, for God's sakes, what is he saying? How can that stuff come out of his head that fast? Here's a special thing I promised you earlier. John reminded me of this just earlier this week. He's like, do you know that 10 years ago this week was when the very first episode of Keith Explains aired? And I'm like, no, I did not know that. Because as I've said before, the past is a big fuzzy mystery to me. I barely remember last week. I have looked at lines of code and said, what idiot wrote that? And realized I did. Earlier in the day. Anyway, 10 years of Keith Explains. And you're like, Keith, that doesn't make sense because I've seen it. And you're doing show 904 right now. 904, I thought that first number was a season number, but you said 10 years, but it's season 9. See, we lost a year when they shut down the Cupertino station before we got moved over to Mountain View. So it's 10 years ago, but we have 9 seasons of Keith Explains. And even so, a season is a nebulous concept. Like, for the first ones, I just started at episode 100, because, like checks, I didn't want to start at episode 1, because, like, no one will watch episode 1. They'd be like, oh, this is going to be terrible. Whereas episode 101, you're like, man, there are 101 episodes of this. I bet it's great. It didn't turn out that way. Because I went back and watched episode 101. It's terrible. It's ungodly bad. I mean, I don't know what I was thinking. And again, John reminded me of this. He's like, that wasn't the first time we taped episode 101. We taped it, and then you hated it. And we went back and taped it again. And I nodded, and I'm like, well, it sounds like something I do, but I maybe. So I printed out a list of all the episodes that I have, and I was kind of reading through it, trying to remember things. The first couple episodes, you may remember, well, you don't remember this because you've never watched the show before, is my assumption. See, that was a leisurely Coke break for me, but for you, you're like, man, does that guy drink Coke fast? Like the first 4 or 5 episodes, right? We had a whiteboard, right? I used to write crap on a whiteboard because I was trying to explain things, and I thought you had to write them down to explain them. And then I stopped doing that when, while editing the shows, I realized whenever I went to write something, you were looking at the back of my head. And the back of my head is even less attractive than the front of my head, and that ain't saying much. And it's not good TV. Like, the back of my head is not good TV. The front may not be good TV either, but the back, definitely not good TV. I'm reminded, I keep talking about these Harry Potter shows. Like, every Harry Potter show I ever did was in the first season. Which means all that hate is now 9 years old, kids. Give it up! It's 9 years ago! Let go! I guess I only did 2 Harry Potter shows. I remember doing 1 Harry Potter show. And I remember that because apparently, as I've said before, I made the mistake of mentioning that maybe Harry was gay. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It'd be perfectly fine if Harry was gay. No, that's not perfectly fine. That'll get you lynched on YouTube is what that'll get you. Like I did this episode about, and I still remember this one, I did this episode about Daredevil. The movie with Ben Affleck. Back when he was going to be a superhero. Remember how that worked out? And I had a great line, because there's this scene where Ben Affleck in his apartment, which he pays for on a cruddy little lawyer salary. He's a blind guy. He's got a room full of statues. And I'm like, that didn't make a lot of sense until it occurred to me. He's blind, but he's got this audio thing. Technically, that's statue porn to him. Right? Those statues are, they found a way in a PG-13 to get porn on the screen, because it's statue porn. At the time, I thought that was hilarious. And now, 9 years later, still hilarious. Some of my shows get a lot more views on YouTube than any of my other shows. And if you're wondering, you can go look at the long list of shows and try to guess. I wonder which of Keith's shows is most popular. I'll give you like 2 seconds to figure it out. I'm going to count to 100 here. Okay, so that was 100. The most popular show I have is the one I did on Puppetry the Penis. It's just because it's got the word penis in it. And I'm assuming an awful lot of people go to YouTube and type penis. And Google doesn't really let porn on YouTube. So anything you find is bad. Is my assumption. But there's still hope among the ever-increasing, every year there's a new set of 13-year-olds. And they get to YouTube and they're like, penis. They're like, look, we found one! And then they start watching, and then they're like, oh, good Lord, I'm scarred. Scarred for life. That's one. There's a couple others that just, they apparently are very, like, I had a show on national security, and I assume if you go to YouTube and type national security, you're like, I'm looking for deep policy discussions about important things to our country. Look, here's someone named Keith who's going to talk about national security. And I assume you get about 30 seconds into it and you realize I'm talking about the movie called National Security, which was terrible. I've got to be bad for a movie. And then you stop watching, which is why my little graph in terms of watching looks like this. It's like, they watch, they stop watching. They watch, they stop watching. Over and over and over. On that topic, I've done a couple shows over the years where I talk political. Those shows are all terrible. Like, more terrible than normal. Like, ungodly bad terrible. There have been a couple shows I taped that later I have been, we're going to have a ceremony and burn that tape. It was that bad. And you shouldn't even burn the tapes. They give off poly somethings. So I'm killing the environment every time I burn one of these tapes. And we've had a couple sponsors over the years. Ford sponsored the show for the first 5 or 6 years. Built Ford tough, like a truck. That might have been Ram. I'm sorry, whoever it was that was sponsoring me, if it was Ford or Ram. There in the middle, we had a sponsorship from Dos Equis. They dumped me in favor of another spokesman, whom I think stole some of my ideas. That's all I'm saying. Litigation is still pending, so I can't go into it. But I will be vindicated. I will be vindicated, is what I'm saying. Like I had show 202 was the one where I broke my leg. Well, I didn't break my leg on the show. I had previously broken my leg, and then I talked about it. And people that watch it are like, wow, Keith, that show is almost touching. And I'm like, yes, we try not to do shows like that anymore, because it inspires feelings in people, and that's not good. I did a show, we went up and saw The Vampire Lestat, which was a play in San Francisco. It was opening in San Francisco so that they could, tweak the play and go to Broadway. And we watched the play, and then apparently it never went to Broadway. Because it was terrible. It was bad. I assume whoever was in charge went, no, we're not going to inflict that on New York. And they inflicted that Spider-Man thing on New York, so they have low standards. I've talked about Maker's Faire a couple times over the years, just because I'm a geek and I think it's such a cool concept. There was the show where I had to hide the name of the celebrity whose TV show I'd been on. So she became Katie Riffin in all the on-screen credits. And no one got it. Like, people later were like, Katie Riffin, who the heck is that? I'm like, I can't tell you. The court order is very specific. I was reading through this list. There are some shows that I don't remember doing. Like, I have a show called Cleaning the Attic Show. I have no idea what I would have talked about. I mean, I have an attic, and I could believe I might have talked about cleaning it once, but for God's sakes, what would I possibly said about it? Oh, here's another one. There's Keith Explains XXX, which is not, as you would think, a porn version of the show. There is one of those. It wasn't done by us. It's parody. It's just like this, except the guy's naked. If you listen to the podcast, it's practically indistinguishable. He's got some funny points, but I like me better. No, I had a show called XXX where I talked about that XXX movie. That one gets a lot of hits on YouTube as well. Up until people realize I'm talking about Vin Diesel. And even then they might stick around, because you could believe Vin Diesel would do porn. And looking, I mean, I guess it's not clear now, right? But the first season we did a whole bunch of shows about movies. And that's because the whole way this show started was from something I used to do at conventions with other geeks, where we would go see a movie, only some people would be too tired to go see the movie. So after we came back from seeing the movie, I would sit around the lobby and explain the movie to everyone else. And my movie explanations could stretch hours past the actual length of the original movie. And people later would go, your movie explanation was much better. Like, the original had Arnold Schwarzenegger and a gun that can fire bullets at the speed of light, and that doesn't make any sense at all, because it had no recoil. I'm like, yes, that doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, who comes up with these ideas? Idiot screenwriters that didn't pay attention in science class. But we kind of transitioned away from that for a couple reasons. First of all, I got tired of going to see bad movies, which I never thought would happen. I mean, how many bad movies can you see? Turns out the answer is around 15. And there was a remarkable sameness to them. And beyond that, it's hard to exactly fit it into half an hour. Right? Some movies I would want to talk more, and we'd get to the end and I would have explained half the movie. And for some, I would just run out of things to say, because the movie was so ungodly terrible that it just made my mind hurt to even try to anticipate what could possibly be going on. We don't have a lot more time. I think I've got 7 more minutes to talk. And that means there's like 20 seconds out there, because we're speeding this up an ungodly amount again, because it will make me sound freaky smart. So I'm going to stop talking about that. I guess very quickly, my parents are arriving on Saturday, so I have to clean my whole damn house again. My parents have been to my house often enough. They know I'm not a clean person. Nonetheless, I still try to clean the house before we get here in some vain attempt to make them think better of me than they do. And I don't think it ever works, because I'm pretty sure my brother's going to inherit everything, because he's got cute kids. I got nothing. I got cats. I guess thanks for watching, everyone. Hopefully this worked out. We'll see you next month. I guess I was going to invite people to call me. Watch, if you're listening to this live on the internet and you know who I am, call me right now. Let me see the phone ring. We're running the credits. No, I never do. John always says to turn the phone off. I never do.
Can't you do it?
I'm a bad man. But what are you going to do? Fire me? Yeah, I heard the what here. Not the earphone. I heard the what through the glass. No one is calling. There's no one watching this live on the internet who knows my phone. What? You don't count.